And it wasn't like I was being a rebellious teenager and saying that, this school is just not working out and I'm just going to like drop out and do drugs or like do some, join some gang.
Jeshua, thanks so much for sharing with us about your adventure in various countries. Now I'm just going to switch gear and talk a little bit more about, especially with regard to your education. I think it's a subject that perhaps a lot of parents who are watching this will be interested in, and maybe even people who are your age, because you took a very different path. You went to one of the best or the best junior college in Singapore, Hwa Chong Institution. You were on a True Train program, the IP program. And what that means is that you didn't have to take your O-levels. The True Train program basically goes through all the way until you take your A-levels.
Yeah.
If you do take your A-levels, but you didn't. You drop out on the 5th year, right? And you decided to go to the polytechnic. I mean, what was the reason that you did that? And again, I'm interested to hear what your parents say, right? Because most parents will say, are you crazy? You went to a junior college. And a lot of people in Hwa Chong, from what I know, they are all planning to go to Oxbridge universities, right? They are prepped to do that, but you didn't. You went to poly. So what happened? What made you do that?
Wow, that was like more than a decade ago, but I think the basis for me selecting a different path was definitely not an overnight decision again. I think it was a culmination of many different life experiences and things that I had been exposed to by the time I was making that decision. And on the one hand, I had gained a significant interest in media, right? Having volunteered in church since I was 10, having done an internship after my last year of school. I was also in the media club back in Hwa Chong. So I had already been, and I did a couple of other projects around even financial literacy where I was doing the media things. And I did some projects in community service where I had to create videos about activities that we did. So I had built up a bit of a portfolio and a bit of experiences in the sector. And along the course of, serving in the church ministry as well as working as an intern or, doing some freelance work and the volunteer work and project work, I came across a number of people who all were from the same course in Polytechnic. So again, like you mentioned, growing up in a True Train program, we don't have career talks or talks that talk about like other institutes of higher learning coming to give us introductory speeches about what are the options in Polytechnic, in ITE, in other JCs. Because the standard route is to just go for year 5, year 6 and then take the A-levels.
Yeah, that's right.
So the only Polytechnic course that I knew at that point was that course that I was in, film, sound and video. And it also happened that at that time, because I didn't have the O-levels, I couldn't just apply like a regular 17-year-old, 18-year-old who completed his secondary education. I had to go through a few hoops, like doing the direct school admission exercise and submitting my portfolio, going through interviews. And it was a very small course, 55 people every year, of which most of the slots were reserved for the O-level students. So obviously the first step to making that decision was having that option. I went for those, I went through the direct admission exercise, did my portfolio submission, interviews, then got offered to join the program. And that was like a pull factor, right? So having this opportunity presented and thinking, having the chance to speak to a lot of the alumni, some of the former students who had gone through the course and even attending some of the lectures, that they were generous enough to let me understand more about the Polytechnic education. So I get that opportunity. And at the same time, in the junior college, right, that I was supposed to continue through year 6 and take the A-levels, I wasn't getting the most flexibility, in terms of choosing the subjects that I wanted to study, because the system was structured such that there were limited class sizes for certain subjects, and you had to do certain combination, right? 3 sciences, 1 contrasting, or 3 arts, 1 contrasting. So I just couldn't find something that was of the highest interest in that format of education. And at the same time, I felt that, since there was this opportunity presented and had already come to a stage where most regular people would not have, that opportunity firstly. Most regular people would not have known so many people from that one course out of all the other courses in the polytechnic world. And either way, like passing on the opportunity to me was more of a cost than taking the standard route where the end result would be to enroll yourself into a university, right?
Yeah, that was what I was thinking. I mean, you're year 5 already, right?
Yeah.
One more year.
No,
Finish
so
up your
I
A-levels.
dropped out actually in the start of year 5. So
Yeah.
because polytechnic starts in the April.
Yeah.
So I actually dropped out officially on the last day of March. And then I immediately went to start polytechnic.
Yeah, but you could have like...
So technically it was 2 years that I would have
but
saved.
even that, most people will say, just do 2 more years. Get
But
your
in
A-levels.
the landscape of media, which was something that I wanted to pursue, the options locally were quite limited. So after we complete, like say, A-levels, there was only a couple of institutions that I could apply for.
Go overseas,
And
something like that.
yeah. So I was looking at it as a very pragmatic thing that, okay, I can go for a polytechnic course which will give me the practical skills that most of the industry requires. Or if you go for a university course in a subject like communications or mass comm, journalism, the subject matter will be a lot more like academic. You will have less practical, and the thinking for me was that at that stage, you don't have to see this as an end to itself, right? So filmmaking is a medium, right? Filmmaking is a tool, just like technology is a tool, just like language is a medium and a tool. You of course have people who are geeks and linguists or technicians who are extremely like siloed and just focus on that hard skill. But for most people, these are all methods of communication. And for me, it was very important also to get the content, right? To get the ideas of like how I'm going to use these tools and to get more tools in the arsenal so that I can deploy the tools at the right time to do something useful. So that was like my very broad thinking. And I felt that going through with the decision that I made would actually give me more tools than to stay with the junior college route. And the end point being that I would go to university, acquire those skills, and that on a net basis would have taken more time, right? Because I had to do 2 years of junior college and then another 3 years or 4 years in university.
Yeah.
So actually the polytechnic route was a shortcut, right? It was a way for me to sort of get the same end result, lesser time, and with a unique opportunity being presented. And one last point also is that I don't have to give up the education, the pursuit of the knowledge that I would have gained through the classes in junior college, because in the world that we are living in today, a lot of these are available online. So if I wanted to, and I still was interested to learn some things like history, economics, philosophy, I could easily, attend an online course, drop into some classes, or did some courses in universities. And that means that, on the other hand, I couldn't drop into a filmmaking course, right? I couldn't invite myself to a project group, to a practical audio mixing class, or to a directing class, a cinematography class. Those were much more, challenging to get yourselves into the right networks and the right context to participate in the learning, compared to a lecture in economics where you can find YouTube, Harvard videos, Yale videos. And there were a lot of things that doesn't seem to make sense. And when you compare it, like just without the brand name of the school, without the sort of prestige that comes with A-level certificate compared to a diploma, and what the traditional like society would tell you in terms of values.
But that's the thing, you see. The thing is that, I mean, people go for some of these colleges, JCs, and go universities, and it's like you said, the brand, the prestige, right?
Yeah.
Right. But the way I'm seeing you is that you look at it very differently. For you, in education, it's really about learning the things that you want to learn.
Yeah.
It's no point for you. You feel that it's no point, or rather, you will rather give up that traditional route because you can learn those knowledge elsewhere. You may not end up with a cert.
why we need the certificate? I don't know what's the use of this piece of
But
paper.
that's Singapore, right? We all want that certificate, and then you can't really go out there and say, I'm from a Hwa Chong alumnus because I'm from Hwa Chong
At least I can say I'm a Hwa Chong dropout.
Yeah, you can say that, but you can't say, okay, you don't belong to the Hwa Chong alumni. But most people would go for that, right? They want that brand name, they want that alumni. But for you is, okay, I can learn this elsewhere. It's more important that I learn the skills of filmmaking at a polytechnic. And even though in a Singapore context, it's less prestigious.
Yeah.
I'm a poly grad, so I know it's less prestigious than the JC. You took it up anyway because you feel that is something that you really want to learn. Your parents, did they say no? Or when you told them that I'm going to drop out from Hwa Chong, and I'm going to go poly and switch course, did they try and stop you?
I think they were definitely surprised. It was not a traditional decision to take from someone in the rest of my cohort. I think probably I was the only one with the kind of circumstances you described. So, but I wouldn't say they were unsupportive. Eventually after talking around it and realizing that this is also an area which I had given careful thought and consideration to, they were sort of
They didn't fight you lah.
Yeah, I would say they were more they saw the logic, right? They saw the reasoning, and they saw that at the end of the day, it's also like a decision I have to take.
Yeah.
Just like how they had once to take decisions in their life, and everyone has to go through this journey of deciding for themselves, what is the path that they want to go through. And it wasn't like I was being a rebellious teenager and saying that, this school is just not working out, and I'm just gonna like drop out and do drugs or like do some join some gang. So I don't think it came from a place like that. It's more of a decision that I myself had to take some time to consider again the options before me, look at the pros and cons, evaluate how I even got to this point where I'm making this decision. And I don't know if it was a friend who told me this or a senior, but he mentioned that a lot of times when you're looking at these crossroads, right, you're thinking about very important and big decisions. Like, you mostly already know the answer, right? It's like whether you have the courage to do the less expected things, and if you don't have the courage, then that's also an answer. That's also a sign that you probably are better off going with the crowd, with the rest
Standard
of
route, so-called.
the world. And that's why when people ask also, what's your advice for entrepreneurs or for people who want to do something different, I say this is something that you have to find within yourself, right, to embark on this less treaded roads. Because if you need encouragement, if you need backing, mostly this is not something that comes naturally. You might be blessed or fortunate to get like well-meaning supporters and cheerleaders, but mostly these paths are long and arduous and narrow and dangerous.
You probably got to walk it yourself.
You have to want to do it so much so that even when the whole world thinks it's a stupid idea, you can find the reason to do it and decide that you should do it regardless of what people say, right? You should do it in spite of the challenges ahead. And that's what makes it so much more rewarding, because if I do again like average, your only average results you can expect, maybe a bit below average, a bit above average. But if you want to do something very useful, very meaningful, very fulfilling, then naturally the kind of inputs that you put in has to also be non-standard, non-conventional. And being contrarian is one thing, but also being correct, right? How you can make sure that the decisions that you take are grounded in like knowledge and in like perspectives that you learn from life experience, from others, from how you want to fulfill. Everybody has their own like mission and vision in their life, right? So if you find that, okay, going for a junior college education will bring me one step closer to a university degree, which I need if I want to be a doctor, then okay, I would say that you definitely need to go with the junior college route. So I'm not saying that everyone has to take polytechnic over junior college.
Obviously, you didn't care very much about the certificate, right?
Yeah,
because
but I'm not planning to be a doctor. So in that sense, I didn't need a university degree. I didn't need to go to medical school. So it's really like what the individual like wants to achieve or to,
but most of us will say that without a certificate, I can't get a job, right? So, I mean, like you, even after you you mentioned it just now, right? After you graduated from the polytechnic, now you don't even plan to go and get a degree. You didn't further your studies, but most Singaporeans will not think that way. I need to get my bachelor's degree.
Singapore is actually one of the lowest university degree rates in the whole developed world, because the government also recognizes that we can't have everybody being a graduate. Right? If 100% of our population are graduates, we have an underemployment issue, because there needs to be people who do
the actual work,
and who are not managers, who are not PMETs. So I mean that's one of the positive things that I can say about how the education system was thought out. But the other angle of it also is that the university format, right, is actually quite different and quite like the value proposition of a university has changed a lot with the advent of the internet. So most of the things that are like downloading of information, right, repetitive tasks, everybody knows that these things will be automated away, that today it's not just a knowledge economy, but it's also about how you use the knowledge that you can easily obtain through a variety of sources. So if everyone is just going to university to sit in a class and to do like memorization or downloading of knowledge into the students and then into the exams, that kind of format would be less relevant, in the modern job economy that we have today.
But because most people think that way, most people will think that I need to get a cert, right? Because most of the employers are still thinking what most people think, and they will be looking out for people with a cert before they employ them, right? So that's what most of us are thinking, and that's what most parents say, you go and get a degree. But, well, obviously it seems like it's not important for you. You don't care about that cert, and all you wanted was to acquire the skills needed for you to do the work. I mean,
I would say that I cared about that cert. It was like something that I strived for when I was young, right? When I knew nothing better, and most people around me were doing the traditional path. So it was on my mind that I will finish my A-levels, I'll go to university, I'll get a degree. And even when I dropped out, the idea was that after my polytechnic studies, I'll go and get a degree somewhere, and I would save 1 year because I had relevant modules. But it's sort of the thing where you get exposed to more and more of life, and you get exposed to more and more of work. And during my polytechnic years, and even before my polytechnic years, I had already been working as a freelancer. I already got an internship with nothing but a portfolio. So it occurred to me slowly and more clearly that in this industry, at least, in the world of media, creative, and entrepreneurship eventually, that nobody cares about your certificate, right? They care about what value you bring. What are the skills that you have?
Can you do the work or not?
And whether you are delivering what you say you can deliver. And to that extent, I also learned to unlearn, right? So one of the things that I unlearned was that at least in certain industries and certain situations, the certificate is not that important. And if you constantly think like a kid, right? Think like a beginner, have a beginner's mindset, and have a humility to know that you don't know. Like the more that you learn and the more experience that you have, you sort of disregard this, or you just take this as a starting point for how dumb you actually are, right? Like how little we actually know. Then that's actually far more, in my opinion, far more respectable than a PhD who thinks that they know everything, right? Or someone who has a master's who thinks that these are all solved. I've already understood the complexity of biology, physics, chemistry, mathematics, and that's where people stop creating new things, where they stop adding value. That's why very rarely you will see in a startup, some guy with a PhD coming out with very like groundbreaking, disruptive stuff. Like it's always the guy who's like, not from the industry, right? Not from the sector, not from this background, doesn't have that pedigree of
I'm just laughing because some of the
accolades.
PhD listening to this will be probably very angry.
but look at Elon Musk. Where is his like rocket degree, or where is his experience in PayPal
or Steve Jobs?
That guy is a dropout of school and created the future of personal computing. Bill Gates also dropped out of school, somehow managed to make like the second or third most valuable company.
Yeah. When my kids were young, they asked me this question as well, and said they also want to drop out because they quote all these names, right? They quoted me all these names, right?
Yeah.
I always tell them that at least drop out from Stanford, you drop out from some unknown school. You can at least say you drop out from Hwa Chong. So don't anyhow drop out, okay? Because you need to, it seems like you need to drop out from a good school. But joke aside.
No, but I mean, it's not so much the school, but it's the fact that these people were having the beginner's mindset, right? They use first principles. They evaluate things from what is possible, not like I learn everything and then I start to tell you that, oh, because I've studied this field for 10 years, I know this rocket will never fly. You know, this chemistry equation, we have been studying it for the last 15 years. It's never going to be solved. But if you are a beginner and a kid, right, you think like, oh, maybe it's possible. Have we tried this method? Have we done that? So the more that you know, I always feel like the more that you know, the less that you know actually.
That's true.
And
I agree with you.
the more that you go through life and you learn from the University of Life, which is the only degree I have, it's sort of a reflection that all the things that we take for granted, all the things that the society teaches us, why is that necessarily the case, right? Again, most of these things are more of a human construct, right? Society, government, companies, corporations, groups, communities, like they all were very different just 2 generations ago. Just even 1 generation ago, if you see the top companies in the world, 15 of them were Japanese. Today, none of them are Japanese. Today, like the 5 companies in the top 20 companies in 1980s, were American, but none of them are in the same list as the top 20 companies today. So there's the amount of disruptive change that has happened, and it's always because the experts rest on their laurels. They think that we are here to stay, right? We are undefeatable. But the underdogs and the new startups and the guys like Google, Facebook, the FANGs and the technology companies, they all catch you by surprise because they come from left field and they do things that people think was impossible. They don't rely on an analogy, rather they do more like ground up first principles thinking.
Yeah, hopefully they continue to think that way, because the problem with incumbents, right, is as they get bigger and bigger and bigger, then they are more stuck in the old way of thinking.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you, do you ever plan financially for yourself? Because I have to ask this question, right? Because it seems like, wow, you can't care less. I'm sure you care, okay, but I just don't want the wrong impression, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't care about the money part. You just do what you want. You travel the world. Do you plan financially for yourself? And many young people of your age, right? They are all talking about FIRE, financial independence, retire early. Everybody is working so hard, and just earning the money, so that they can retire early. At least you gave the impression, okay, I'm not too worried about the money part. I just want to go and do what I want to do. So, do you ever think of yourself? Think for yourself financially.
I think financial literacy is extremely important, which is one of the reasons why I embarked on the project when I was in secondary 4. So the proof of the pudding is always in the eating. So it's not just about the head knowledge of how best to allocate, a safety net, investing, saving, different financial instruments.
So when you started, you were thinking of the money as well. Like, not just I want to do this for fun, right?
I would say that I recognize that certain jobs, certain industries will be more like better compensated. You will be getting a better paycheck. But for me, I think a lot of the planning and mindset was also about not spending so much, right? Because ultimately, if you decrease your standard of living or if you decrease your expenses, that is like profit is just like revenue minus cost, right? So you can look at it as maximizing your revenue or decreasing your cost or both. So a lot of my considerations was how you can live without spending so much, and then naturally the amount that you have to earn will be lesser. The amount that you can save and invest will be more. So I think I came at this aspect of my life on finances from that mindset more than like just maximizing your income, because at the end of the day, it's all about input and output. Like if you eat a lot, you exercise a lot, you still become healthy. If you eat little, you exercise little, maybe you'll be less healthy, but you won't be overweight. But if you eat a lot, but you exercise little, and you are very inactive, a couch potato, that's where you become fat and unhealthy. So for me, for financial planning and things like that, I wouldn't say I had a very clear roadmap, right? Like I didn't have a 5-year plan, 10-year plan when I want to retire. But along the way, as I started different businesses and I realized that, okay, these things are paying for itself, right? I'm getting customers, I'm getting revenue, I'm spending less than I make, and therefore there are some savings that I can do some investments. These are signs that I was on the right path. And as I was decreasing my standard of living, I always joke that when I was a kid, I go to vacation with my family, we stay in hotel, we have taking taxis, my parents drive me around. And then today when I go overseas, I stay in a hostel, I cycle, I sometimes stay in a tent, I cook my own food because it's cheaper. And a lot of the places that I go to, the monthly expenses that I have is like less than $500, less than $400. Like, living in Myanmar for 2 or 3 years, living in, traveling to India, to Pakistan, Bangladesh. So these places are not expensive at all. And in fact, I would say that I spend less money than most Singaporeans. So having the ability to run businesses, work for other companies, work with other companies, and decreasing my standard of living is, to me, like a practical sense of retirement. Because I think retirement is not like you just do nothing, you just drop everything, but rather you just do what you want to do, and money is not like the primary focus of your job activity. So to me, that is already the case, right? Like if I really wanted to retire, I could get a villa in Myanmar or in Thailand, spend $300, $400 a month, and practically do nothing for the rest of my life. I can put my savings in a vehicle that gives me 5%, 7% interest, and that interest would pay for the rest of my expenses, because the expenses are so low. So it's not about the ability to retire, but also the net kind of usefulness, I would say, right? The net usefulness or utility that each person's limited time on this planet can achieve. And also not being constrained by like your 9-to-5 job, because you need to pay certain bills, you need to like have a obligation to fund your mortgage, your car loan, your purchase of an expensive watch or expensive boat or expensive car. And I think that's where, for me, the like in the last 3 years of traveling, I haven't made a significant purchase because I was traveling with a backpack. Every item I buy has to fit in that backpack, and it will be extra weight, and I would not be able to check into some budget airlines that only allow me a small carry-on item. So my expenses have been low, and I've been working, I've been starting and running the companies that I've been doing. So I think overall I would say I'm financially healthy, but not a very conventional, like plan, or not a very conventional allocation of capital or investments that people would typically do, because I also don't see like money and making a lot of money as like the primary goal. I see money again as a tool. So you can use this money to achieve certain things. You can use this money to give away, to invest in others, to allow you to have flexibility in your lifestyle. Like if I suddenly feel that it's the right thing for me to take a break for a year, I could well afford to do that.
Yeah, just smiling a little bit because I thought you gave a perfect analogy. I'm not sure whether that was intended, but you said that everything that you wanted to buy, has to fit into that backpack.
Yeah.
And so that backpack actually is the most important thing in your life, at least when you're traveling, right? Because you buy too big a backpack, it's a huge burden.
Exactly.
Right? So you need to buy the ideal size.
And you have to buy the size that the airlines will let you carry on.
Yeah. And a strong backpack so that it doesn't break and you don't have to change it all the time.
Yeah.
So that's the most important thing. And after you have done this most important thing, which is to buy that suitable backpack and a good backpack, then you arrange your life around that backpack, because whatever you got to buy, you have to fit into that backpack.
And it was already full from day one, because there was like 4 or 5 sets of clothes. There was my laptop, like charger, some power banks, and so basically I couldn't put anything else inside. If I wanted to buy something new, I had
something
to
has to
throw
go.
away
Yeah, something has to go,
something
right?
else.
So you got to decide, and in a way that describes our life, right? Because we are all finite, right? And if we want to get new things, put on new things in our life, do extra things, something will have to go. There will always be a trade-off, and so we have to decide what is the most important for us before we keep on adding things into our life. So I thought that was a really good analogy about how life should be lived. So you're quite atypical from a many young people in Singapore. Young people here living in Singapore, they feel pressure to own that first BTO. They are worried about whether they can afford that BTO. They are pressured about getting married, raising their children, and all that. It seems like you don't think very much about all these things.
I would say that the last 3 years, of course, is an anomaly, right? It's making the best of a not so good situation. I would not be, seeing myself constantly at that cadence of travel or at that intensity of, being a digital nomad for the rest of my life. I would say that even now, I'm back in Asia, I'm back in Singapore and Myanmar most of the time. So I would say that it's less important to just be different for different sake, right? That's not my intention. I don't want to just like disagree with everything that people say or
you don't disagree for disagreement's sake.
Exactly, right? You do things because it makes sense, because you have thought through it carefully, and because you evaluate the again outcomes that could result from your actions. And also, like, again, for most of these decisions that I mentioned earlier, whether it's in education or in work or in travels, it's about what sort of aligns with your mission and vision, right? What sort of is going to get you from here to there. And there's an analogy that that's usually a road full of pain and suffering, right? The root word of passion is pain. So if you see that, let's say you want to achieve so and so, whether it's a financial goal or other goals, like, it's not going to be like you just dream and you get there. It's not going to be that you just write it on a piece of paper or tell someone and you achieve it the next day. Usually it's fraught with a lot of challenges, fraught with a lot of difficulties.
Right.
And that's also a path that you must be willing to take, because you either do less pain and less challenge and you achieve less, right? You lower your vision and what you want to get to. Or you do more and you get more, right? It's basic math. Like, it doesn't work any other way. They might feel that that's stifling, that's not their cup of tea. They don't want to do a to-do list every day. Like, they want to look at solving problems, be more like outcome driven, results based, that